Good evening and welcome to Business Live. Coming up, PricewaterhouseCoopers Ghana reveals what is driving a freeze in major projects and capital flow because of upcoming elections.
Investors are concerned about policy direction or potential changes in policy because, again, investment is a long-term thing. And where you have a potential shift in direction, no matter who emerges successful in the election.
We shall get some analysis on that. Also in this bulletin, some oil marketing companies commence reduction in prices of petroleum products, with petrol going for 14 cedis 2 pesos and diesel 13 cedis 65 pesos. How significant is this reduction? We shall be finding out. Plus, Ghana is set to benefit from agro-technology transfer from Brazil to enhance the value of the country's agricultural produce.
That's a lot more processing facilities should be put across the country, so we can process whatever produce we are going to have, especially the surpluses. So we can take advantage of this chamber that has been launched.
We have details of these and more for you shortly. Please stay. Much for your time. I am Pius Kojo Bakai. Look now at our stories. Fears of policy change by a new government from 2025 are pushing a lot of businesses to freeze projects and capital flows. That's according to the senior country partner at PwC, Vesha Shangbo. Now, this is coming at a time the Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Nes Addison has also warned that election-related issues are now impacting on the cedi. Well, Mr. Shangbo has been speaking to my colleague George Yafe on PM Express Business Edition.
I think that the concerns around the elections are to be expected, not just because of what has happened here in Ghana, but if you look around our continent, you'll find that there's always been pockets of challenge in terms of elections. That's not to suggest that, and I don't think that any of the companies that we have engaged are particularly concerned about social disruption or such like around the elections, because like you said, here in Ghana we have been able to manage these elections, you know, for different cycles. But again, investors are concerned about policy direction or potential changes in policy, because again, investment is a long-term thing. And where you have a potential shift in direction, no matter who emerges successful in the election, then people are concerned, and therefore they'll adopt a wait-and-see approach. It should be lessened this cycle because we're in an IMF program, and whoever emerges successfully in this election, I don't think will have too much ability to change things, although you may have heard one or two people speak about potential.
There have been comments about
about potentially
renegotiating the IMF deal, and from the opposition former president saying that, granted an interview to Reuters actually.
Absolutely. So again, those are some of the things that may create some uncertainty and filter into a little bit of let's wait and see how things emerge. You know, because it has implications for the environment, for the economy. And again, if you're a long-term investor, that will be of concern to you.
All right, so let's interrogate this further. Joining us via Zoom to do that is economist, who's also the director of ISE, Professor Peter Quae. Thanks so much, Professor Quae, for joining us on Business Live. Now, are the fears of businesses freezing projects and, of course, capital flow justified just because of the policy change by a new government from 2025?
But I don't think it is very widespread and very significant or major, because if you look at our history, we have been a very stable democracy, one of the most stable in Africa, and there could be one or two policy reversals, but there have not been major ones. I believe every government or every administration that comes into government knows that government is a continuity, and therefore, if there's going to be any change, it's not just a drastic one. It has to be negotiated. It has to be agreed upon. So, for me, I would urge businesses to not to panic, not to worry, because whoever wins the elections, we have a stable system, we have structures, and therefore some of these so-called political statements might not really materialize. Sometimes we've heard some of these statements in the past, and they've never been able to push them through. They've not been materialized. So let's not throw panic out there. Let's not worry. There could be one or two discussions and negotiations, but I don't think we are in a dictatorship where somebody can just get up and implement a policy without engaging the stakeholders concerned.
I then guess that government and, of course, managers of the economy have a greater role to play when it comes to education and ensuring that, well, structurally, we are there.
Oh, certainly, the managers of the country would have to do more education. They have to come to the table. I believe in previous elections, there even been an MOU between the candidates where they have signed an agreement to ensure that there's a peaceful transition and many other things. Some of the things you cannot really negotiate, you cannot change. And therefore, we need to be more open and transparent with our electorates and rather campaign on issues rather than throwing in panic here and there. But I'm sure we'll go through this like we've done in previous elections. So let's continue the education. Let's continue to Ghanaians themselves should also behave in a way to avoid electoral violence, to avoid anything that will not inure to the benefit of the country. We need stability. But that's the only country we have.
And I'm still wondering what more government can do despite the education and, of course, bringing the parties in terms of businesses to the table to ensure that you give them that confidence they need. What more can government do beyond that?
Beyond that, I think government should ensure there is a stable environment, there is a stable macro environment, there is stable or security within the system. And of course, continuous engagement with the business community, with Ghanaians. I believe if all the structures are in place, we need institutions. Once we have strong institutions, all of these things will not some of these agitations will not happen because it will not materialize. So government should continue to build strong institutions to ensure that we respect democracy, we respect business laws, we respect investors, we respect electoral outcomes, we respect electorates and every other stakeholder that is concerned.
And again, let me pick your thoughts on this. When you get to hear concerns from, of course, the governor, for example, say that, well, election-related issues is having an impact on the city, what sort of message do you think this sends to, the business community and, of course, the investor community?
No, for me, I take this as a positive signal. He's just admitting what the reality is. There are a few people who, because of elections, might hold on to their forests, might not sell their forests, or might change cedis into dollars. It happens. It's normal. There's we can't say there's zero risk when it comes to elections. There is some element of anticipated risk, and people being rational will behave in a certain way. And that is basically what the governor is telling you. And he's telling you that, yes, despite all of this, we are managing the exchange rate, we are managing the monetary sector very well to ensure that it doesn't escalate. So I think it was good he's admitting, but also telling you that he's doing what it takes to ensure that this doesn't escalate.
I then assume that after 2025, we shall see these businesses, pumping in more inflows and, of course, setting up new projects.
Yeah, certainly, because every investor will look for a stable democracy, will look for security, will look for a country where systems work, a country where the financial system is well developed, a country where there's growth, a country where there's rule of law. I can go on and on and on. And I think Ghana stands tall when it comes to all these factors that attract investors. So come 2025, we'll all be alive, God willing, and we'll see our economy rebound, and we see greater things, a better future for us and for the future generations. We should rather continue to generate more jobs, attract more private investors so that the young people coming out of our institutions of higher learning and in many other places can find jobs and would all be comfortable.
And again, I would like you to pick your thoughts on this as well in relation to the comments by the former President John Mahama, say that, well, if he assumes office in 2025, there are some policy changes he may want to do with the IMF going forward. And this certainly would have an impact in terms of, businesses wanting to do, basically investors wanting to do business in the country and what have you. Is that jittery from the business community we are witnessing now justified again?
Well, I think the IMF is not an institution where you can easily come and push over. The IMF is also not a dictatorial institution that also will dictate your country's policies. Everything they do is based on negotiations, discussions. So if he says he's going to engage and negotiate, doesn't mean he's going to throw everything away and start something new. I mean, there are some areas that he thinks are biting and he has to be adjusted, or there are some performance indicators that we are not able to meet. Of course, the window is open for him to engage the IMF, and I believe the IMF listens. So for me, I believe those are the areas he's talking about, rather than throwing the policy away and negotiating a new one. There are some areas if he thinks maybe privatizing ECG or certain things that the Ghanaian will not accept or might be more difficult to accept, he can go back to the IMF and say, look, let's revise this, or some revenue or some taxes that is biting, and he wants the IMF to note with some justifications, and then we can say, look, this is an alternative way of raising revenue to, fill in that shortfall, and therefore I want us to have that discussion. IMF, I believe, having worked there and engaged with them, I believe is willing and we're willing to engage.
Thank you so much, Professor Peter Quae, for your thoughts this evening on Business Life. We appreciate it, sir. Away from that, some oil marketing companies have started reducing prices of petroleum products in line with expected adjustments at the pumps. George Yafe has more.
Star Oil has taken the lead, selling a litre of petrol at 13 Ghana cedis, 65 pesos, from its old price of 13 Ghana cedis, 93 pesos. This represents 28 pesos drop in value, while in percentage terms, it has gone down by more than 2%. Diesel has also gone down by more than 3% and is selling at 14 Ghana cedis, 2 pesos. This means that consumers who will be turning to Star Oil will be paying 46 pesos less. Prices should have been adjusted from yesterday. However, checks by Joy Business showed that only a few have reviewed their prices as of this afternoon. Many will be watching to see the expected margin of reduction by the other major oil marketing firms and how that would influence the more than 100 oil marketing companies out there.
To bring in the research and policy analyst at the Institute of Energy Security, Derek Hatchett, for more on that. Thanks so much, Derek, for joining me via phone. Already, fuel prices have dropped by 2%, as you rightly predicted. Petrol, for instance, is going for 14 cedis 2 pesos, and of course, diesel 13 cedis 65 pesos per litre at some OMCs we sampled. How significant is this?
Pius, thanks for the opportunity. This is also quite good news for consumers because the past window, we predicted that prices would go up, and then evidently it went up. And so for this pricing window, as we rightly predicted, the prices are supposed to come down. And so for prices to reduce at the various pumps, that is good news. We only hope that all the other OMCs will also be more lenient to consumers and then reduce their prices. Not always when they hear of prices to increase and they are in a rush to be able to increase it. As at this time, this should be good news for consumers, and so the OMC should also do the consumers the honest and then accordingly reduce their prices.
Derek, some are questioning the sustenance of this reduction in the wake of the exchange rate volatilities and, of course, developments on the world market.
Basically, you need to question it because for whatever thing that is causing or accounting for these price reductions or increments, nothing that the government of Ghana has control over. The government of Ghana is not doing anything to take control over what he has control over, especially regarding the exchange rate. For the past year, the cedi continues to depreciate, and so that is what we expect the government to be able to take hold of, but not be able to deliver on that mandate. Regarding international prices, we do not have control over it, but on the international market, whatever thing that happens there is what reflects at the various pumps. But for example, in this current pricing window, on the international market, diesel went down by almost 5% points, and so the cedi also depreciated by about 1%. Assuming the cedi had appreciated, wouldn't have felt that kind of decrease. The decrease would have been more than what we are even experiencing now. Would have been maybe experiencing about 6% reduction or 7% reduction. And so even on the international market, the prices continues to fall. What we have control over, which is the cedi or the stability of the currency, we are not doing much about it. And so going forward, whatever thing that happens on that international market, which we do not have control over, basically we cannot predict, and then that is not sustainable going forward.
And what does the future look like in terms of the second pricing window?
For the second pricing window, it's quite early to be able to predict, because on the international market, the force of demand and supply can affect prices at any particular point in time. And so for now, it's quite early to be able to talk about the second pricing window.
All right. Thank you so much, Derek, for your time here on Business Live. You're still watching Business Live. We are back with more for you. Please stay. Hello again. Director of Research at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Dr. John Quae, is calling for stringent policies for exports and imports in the country. This is said will ensure stability in Ghana's exchange rate regime. He was speaking at a national review and feedback on Ghana's IMF-supported program organized by the Economic Governance Forum.
To stabilize the exchange rate on a permanent basis, we need policies that will maximize our export earnings and reduce import demand, because the problem is that we have this foreign exchange supply and demand gap that is persistent, and we need to close that gap, by addressing the supply side and then the demand side. Then Bank of Ghana should also progressively build up the foreign exchange cover of the cedis it has issued. The current statutory floor is that the bank should cover that with 40% of foreign exchange. We are suggesting that progressively they should increase it to about 70%, or at least 6 months of import cover. That will give a solid backing to the exchange rate. And where do we get the extra foreign exchange from? Our natural resource wealth. It is there. We can own it and use it to support your cedi. It's as simple as that. Go on, please. Fiscal policy. Government must plug the numerous tax loopholes, as I've said, including trade misinvoicing, tax exemptions, and so on, that I mentioned. Government must also rationalize its expenditure by curbing recurrent expenditure and then allocating more resources to capital expenditure to spur growth.
Now to one of our headline stories. Deputy Minister of Agriculture Yao Frimpong Adu says Ghana is set to benefit from agro-technology transfer from Brazil, aiming to enhance the value of the country's agricultural produce. This highlights that the second phase of the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative will necessitate constructing numerous food processing facilities nationwide to boost Ghana's processing capacity. Now, speaking at the launch of the Ghana-Brazil Chamber of Commerce in Accra, Mr. Frimpong emphasized that Ghana stands to gain significantly from Brazil's extensive expertise in agro-processing. Carlos Caloni has the rest of the story.
The launch of the Ghana-Brazil Chamber of Commerce brought together government officials, corporate executives, politicians from both countries, and potential investors from Colombia and Chile. The chamber aims to enhance trade and technology transfer between the two countries and foster close cultural collaboration. Speaking at the launch, the founding president of the GBCC, Edinam J. Sika, emphasized the importance of the chamber in improving Ghana's trade balance with Brazil.
We expect to give opportunities for businesses both in Brazil and Ghana to come together for networking and to be able to strike some business deals and investment. So what we'll be doing is that we'll be having a lot of educational webinars, opportunities for Brazilians to know what it takes to do business in Ghana, how to register a company, for example, what to look out for, and we'll also be talking to our Ghanaians on how to, for example, import from Brazil, the things to look out for. We also intend to focus on the cultural aspects, like everyone said. Brazil and Ghana are so close, and so even when you take our food, for example, everything that we eat, they do, but in a different way. So we're going to try to bring the two cultures together through a lot of amazing cultural events. And also, if you look at the trade balance, currently we still do a lot of exportation in the area of our oil and petroleum crude to Brazil, and the trade balance looks good, but it can be better. We are looking at institutional relations.
Deputy Minister of Agriculture Yaw Frimpong Addo, who launched the chamber, praised the initiative, stating that Ghana will benefit from Brazil's agro-processing expertise as the country seeks to expand its food processing capacity.
We are hoping that a lot more processing facilities will be put across the country so we can process whatever produce we are going to have, especially the surpluses. So we can take advantage of this chamber that has been launched officially today. And to add to that, we are also looking at livestock. We need a lot of technology transfer, and Brazil is very good at that. They produce our cocoa too, but we have better cocoa than them. So that is where our expertise will also be needed in this series. So through this chamber, I know there's going to be a lot of exchange of ideas. It is up to us to up our game, especially agri-production and processing, adding value to what we do.
On her part, charged affairs of the Embassy of Brazil in Ghana, Ms. Luisa Horta Barbosa believes both countries stand to gain a lot from the initiative.
Well, I think our countries have much to gain from each other, because Brazil is renowned for our agricultural prowess, our technology, advanced technology, cutting edge in the field of agriculture especially, and Ghana is a dynamic and growing market. So I think we are natural complements in that area. So I think we can both benefit from this as we intensify our trade and also help increase productivity in Ghana, and especially in critical areas such as food production and food safety.
Deputy Trade Minister Michael Otrebefi used the occasion to appeal to Brazilian businesses, urging them to leverage Ghana's strategic location and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Initiative to invest in the country. For Joy News, Carlos Caloni, Accra.
And that's it for the bulletin for tonight. I am Pius Kojo Bakan. Up next is Beyond the Numbers with Winston Taki and, of course, Isaac Kofi Eje for some great analysis on the banking industry and, of course, NPLs. You just don't want to miss out that discussion. And they are in the studios already. Good evening, guys.
Good evening, Pius.
Great topics you have.
But actually, it's the NPLs that we'll be talking about in the next 2 or 3 minutes. We know that the non-performing loans has actually reached 24%.
Absolutely.
And that's a big threat to the banking industry. So we'll be doing some great analysis on Beyond the Numbers. Stick and stay. We'll be back after this short break.